to Reclaim You. I'm so excited today to introduce Ashley Fox. Ashley is a new clinician that joined our practice about a month ago. And yeah, I'm super excited that she's here today and she's going to be joining us and rotating through topics on the podcast. So, hey, Ashley.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So Ashley is coming to us with experience working at a college counseling center. And so she is working with lots of folks struggling with disordered eating and body image concerns, trauma. Just super psyched that she's here. I'd love to get started asking the same thing I ask everyone. What does Reclaim You mean to you?
I think when I first think about it, I think of just kind of the general idea of like taking back what has been taken away from you, whether it's, society, family, friends, something that's been taken away. And I think recently with my clients, when I've been thinking of like reclaiming them and reclaiming you in terms of them, I think a lot of just like coming back to yourself and who you are at your core without all of those external factors and without trying to fit in, without trying to be someone else, like who you truly are, which I think gets away from us a lot of the times, especially with disordered eating and trauma. So getting back to that and like kind of their values and that type of thing.
I feel like the past couple of weeks, Abby said something similar with authenticity, and then Casey said something similar with authenticity. So yeah, it feels like a good theme to kind of carry us in to this season of the podcast. Yeah. So Ashley, tell us a little bit before we dive into today's episode. We're talking all about college transitions and things like that. But before that, just if you could share with everyone like who you're loving working with, what you're doing in the practice, all of those cool things.
Currently, a lot of my clients are coming in with disordered eating, a lot of teens and young adults. And I think a lot of the clients that I really enjoy working with are like those first timers and giving them a positive experience, whether they come in like having preconceived notions about therapy, or maybe they had a negative experience in the past and didn't like vibe with their therapist, kind of giving them the opportunity to like speak up in sessions and check in with them. And I've really been loving that aspect of giving them like as good of an experience as I can.
Yeah. So like reclaiming the therapy experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Big on the word reclaim. Yeah. So let's dive into the topic today and just talking a lot, like I said, a lot about college students and transitions and navigating coming home for the summer, maybe going to school for the first time or going back to school. And with college students and young adults, there's like so many transitions that happen that it can be so hard to find your footing in feeling stable in lots of areas of life. So where should we start?
I think I'm just picturing like going through the process of college and like kind of going through when you first start, then there's all of these breaks and then like semester changes and then coming back for the summer, and the cycle is just repeating. So I think first going into college, like the biggest change is just that change in like usually you're living with someone new and adjusting to all of these different things along with like the academic obvious changes. There's that whole change in where you're living and who you're living with that can really impact your eating habits. So I feel like, especially the dining hall, like there's just that preconceived idea anyway of like dining hall food sucks and it's terrible and there's nothing that you want. Those disordered eating behaviors and kind of feeling like you have to go with someone else, or feeling like, oh, I have an 8 a.m. class, I'm not going to eat before class, and then skipping that meal. And like, how are you supposed to keep up with your academic performance in that aspect? So I think that living environment, that first adjustment can be really challenging.
Yeah, for sure. I'm thinking back to when I first went to college. I feel like I was maybe a weird one where I was like so excited there was a dining hall. I was like, whoa, all this different type of food. I moved to Philly from far away. So it was like all things that I feel like I didn't have access to. But yeah, so like the dining hall, the hours, especially if you're coming from an environment where things are relatively stable and someone's supporting you and, with prepared meals, and maybe you've never really had to choose before, and then being faced with maybe scary options or options that you never, have been exposed to, and just the decision fatigue that can come along with standing in a line at a dining hall, if that's still how it works, and being like, well, what do I get? Like, what do I want? What do I like? And then with like the living environment and transitioning to living with someone new, let's talk about that a little bit. Like navigating, it's kind of like this, it can be this opportunity to like reclaim who you are along those lines of showing up authentically, or, a lot of people I think have a hard time with that when they first go to school. I know that I did. I was like, oh crap, I have to, like, I know no one. I have to make all new friends, and how do I do that, and who am I, and what if no one likes me, and you feel so lonely. So how How do you navigate that?
I feel like you're in this whole new environment with all these new people, and maybe you know no one except for this like random roommate that you're paired with. So I feel like sometimes it's like, oh, I'm going to cling on to this person, or I met this person at orientation, I'm going to cling on to them. So learning how to like break out of that and like increasing that confidence, even if it is, okay, I'm going to go to the dining hall without my roommate or without that friend that I made, or I'm going to go join a club by myself. Like there's, I know it's like kind of cliche that everyone promotes all these things on college campuses, but it really is true to like help you break out of your shell, help you meet those like minded people that maybe you had in high school that you don't have yet on campus.
And I'm thinking about even the transition home for the summer, because I know a lot of the folks that you're working with now, and some of my clients too, are home for the summer from school. And that transition from even like getting settled into a routine with dining halls and food and friends, and then the transition home can be also very jarring. So what's in that transition back home, and how it can be like whiplash in a way?
Yeah, like kind of constant whiplash of
Uh-huh.
always coming home, always going to school. But I feel like even the changes in like classes, like you get used to, okay, I have lunch at this time, I have dinner at this time, I have a break here. And then going back home, kind of like readjusting to your family's patterns again can be hard. Maybe you're finally like, oh, I can sleep in now. I
Mm-hmm.
can do this now. And feeling like you want to just like relax and breathe,
Yeah.
but keeping up with some type of structure, whether that's just structuring your day around meals or around your summer job and that type of thing, and kind of maintaining some type of structure as hard as that is.
Can be really hard, but also the structure is like prevents you from feeling like a free fall, right? And like
Yeah.
aimlessly navigating your days and not knowing, because that can bring on a whole other bala something. And what about, so I know a lot of people who are going to school, maybe most people, I don't even know how to quantify it, but the dreaded, right? The dreaded freshman 15.
I feel like going to school, it was so talked about and it was always in the back of my mind, at least my freshman year. Whether it was like people from home talking about it and worrying, how are they going to perceive me when I get back, or people on campus talking about it, and that affecting like, how are you viewing your body? How are you viewing your food choices? How is that affecting your choices in general, and how you're like living your life every day? And that little voice in the back of your head that's just so often talked about, and that fear of like, what will people think if I do gain it, and
Mm-hmm.
like that extreme pressure to maintain.
And then what comes along with that pressure is often, right, like disordered eating habits, disordered exercise habits, skipping
Mm-hmm.
meals. And then there's this like ripple effect that happens, right? If you're not feeding yourself well, if you're not engaging in health promoting behaviors, things start to feel not so great for most people.
Especially in college, and like then that affecting academics, and then that academic stress like cycling into coping with that with disordered eating behaviors, and it's just this like never ending pressure.
And I feel so important, right, to call it out as just like a product of diet culture, a product, of course, of like anti-fatness and fat phobia, that even the idea that like it's dreaded, right? Like people are like, watch out, right? It's this like awful thing. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like looking at bodies as an object, it's looking at bodies as pathology and that there's something wrong, which
Mm-hmm.
of course are like seeds. And maybe sometimes it's like watering seeds that have already been planted, that body change is bad, that certain bodies are wrong. And so, just to kind of like name that staying resilient as best as you can to those messages. It is so hard in college, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
also so important that like be with the transition, like find yourself,
Mm-hmm.
enjoy your experience, right? Being so hyper focused on your body just pulls you out of your life so much.
Mm-hmm. I just wish that I had the knowledge that I have now back then,
Mm-hmm.
and had viewed it in the way that like we just talked about, of it's, you know, part of diet culture, and we've it's been like ingrained in us, and it's not my value but
Mm-hmm.
society's. And I wish I had just been able to like speak up about that
Mm-hmm.
and kind of feel a little bit more empowered.
Yeah, right. Because it like takes all the power out of your hands of how you're engaging with your life and puts it into some ideal and marketing and bullshit. And that's just making me think about too. And I don't know if I have like memories of this from college, but what can happen, especially now with social media, right? Like social media, Facebook came out when I was a freshman in college. So we were like the first
Mm-hmm.
wave of Facebook. So of course it's so different now, but like the comparisons and the body checking and the disordered behaviors in groups. I'm thinking of maybe if you have any tips for people who are starting to experience like the community of other people dieting or other people body checking, um, and maybe just like how to stay a bit resilient to that in
Mm.
the college experience, especially in the new college experience, because it's so easy to get sucked into it.
I think there are two aspects to that, like the social media and then also the like in-person living experience that you're having. So in terms of social media, it's kind of like you're aware of what you're consuming, but ignoring how dangerous it is. So like pointing out, ooh, how do I feel when I see that post? Or how do I feel when I look at this person's page? And even like one of my favorite things to do is like put the timer on and like limit how long you're on social media,
Yeah.
because it is such a big part of a young adult's life, and
Mhm.
not everyone is ready to fully delete it. So minimizing the impact as best as you can. And then that in-person experience, like really surrounding yourself with people that lift you up, even if it's something like, you're sharing clothes and you're like living in the same environment, like not doing that and not.
Yeah.
That's an easy way to compare. Oh, you look like that in that shirt and I look like this.
Mhm.
So really like kind of going back to that reclaim you of like embracing your individuality and who you are.
And so much of this, I think it can be so supportive to talk with a therapist about like your values, right? And like what's important to
Mm-hmm.
you, and differentiating like maybe what you're carrying that's been planted by diet culture and beliefs about from family and friends, maybe from high school and things like that, and what's actually yours. Starting kind of like
Mm-hmm.
sift through those things and externalize what was given to you that you didn't necessarily say, like, yeah, give me that belief about my body and myself and what's important in life. And then what about academic stress? I'm thinking about academic stress like while you're in college and then the collapse that can happen when you're home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of the times, it's kind of that value. Like academics can be at the very, very top of your list, especially if you're in college. That is usually the like main reason that you're there, getting your degree, learning what you finally want to learn instead of those like gen ed classes. And
Right. Yeah.
then, building up all this confidence of maybe grades or relationships with professors and classmates and connections and everything else that you're doing in college. And then going home for this summer break where there's nothing anymore. So how are you, identifying your worth and what are you putting those values in anymore? Like, what do you have at home, and kind of finding something else? Because a lot of times it does turn to your body
Yeah.
and body image, and summer's an easy time to fall into that trap.
So hard. It's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm thinking about, I think there was another episode, I can't remember how long ago, but a while ago, I think Laura and I were talking about the idea of like control and eating disorders and this like grasp for what a lot of people see as control, but flipping it into like this grasp for like containment and safety and structure, even if we don't necessarily know that's what we're grasping for. So kind of
Mm-hmm.
zooming out and thinking like, what am I actually needing that I'm trying to achieve through these behaviors, or whether it's academics or food. I think it can be, perfectionism is a thing that we see a lot of, whichever avenue it's going.
Definitely.
So all of these transitions, the hardness that is college and like launching into young adulthood, home, school, all of those things. So what can be helpful for folks who are going to school, coming home for the summer, adjusting to like the shifting of classes and schedules and routines? What are your top tips for folks?
In terms of like the adjustment and the constant transition, I say again, like reiterating that creating a schedule is definitely helpful, or some type of structure. Even, when you get to the point where you can choose your class schedule, kind of making it as similar as you can, making those times for meals in between and making those breaks for yourself, knowing how many classes can I have in a row before I'm burnt out, and being aware of that and creating your schedule around that. Even like packing snacks, or, before you move in your freshman year, having those favorite things in your dorm for easy access when the dining hall's not open or they don't have what you want. Even I love to like pack options in my bag with
Mm-hmm.
me. So you don't know if you're going to want salty, sweet, chocolate. Like, you don't know what you're going to crave in a few hours. So having all of those readily available can be helpful. And then I think, away from like structure, just when you're on campus, finding that support system that you might have had at home and creating that like home away from home, those friends that really lift you up, those friends that, don't make you want to compare yourself, those friends that make you feel good and, you can be yourself around. And then obviously like using those services that are available to you. So whether that's counseling services on campus or finding a virtual therapist, knowing what you need and advocating for them and working towards it.
So helpful. Any parting words before we wrap up to folks, especially folks who are maybe home for the summer and they're feeling a little, I don't know, I think it's hard because you can get sucked back into family dynamics and old patterns when you're home for the summer that maybe you had some freedom and space from before. So I don't know, any words of wisdom for those folks who are just like in the messiness of summer right now?
Go back to your values, what you want. Maybe if you're in recovery, like going back to those reasons why you want to recover and really remembering maybe you made progress during the school year, going back to that and how you did that and how you overcame obstacles and trying to implement those same strategies during the summer as hard as it can be.
Yeah. And there's support available, right? There's lots of support. So lean on people that can uphold you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, everybody. So Ashley has some openings right now. So if you're looking for some support, definitely reach out. Ashley is fabulous and we'd be happy to get you started and set up. Until next time, everyone, take good care.